Welcome to the Tesla Power Podcast. This is where we're building the Tesla energy community. We're covering solar panels, solar roof, Powerwall for your home. I'm Aaron Brady. Today, let's talk about energy and historical wealth. Let's talk about the Tesla solar roof supply. Let's talk about residential wind power and a lot more. Let's do it. So as per usual, we'll kick off the pod with community input. You can participate in tons of ways. You can leave a comment below, link your YouTube videos. You can call 203-816-5150, or you can email teslapowerpodcast@gmail.com. For the bold and ambitious, you can record an unlisted video question in the YouTube app, send a link, and I'll put your video question in the show. So first up, we've got Dwight Adams. He's got a little direction for us on a quote that he referenced. It's an excerpt from the National Archives with an introduction to the Tennessee Valley Authority Act, or the TVA. It was written in 1933. Let's read it. Quote, the most dramatic change in valley life came from the electricity generated by TVA dams. Electric lights and modern appliances made life easier and farms more productive. Electricity also drew industries to the region, providing desperately needed jobs, end quote. And it's hard to remember just how dramatically life changed for Americans between the 1920s and 1950s. I mean, in the 1920s, basically no Americans had electricity or running water. It was completely different by the 1950s. Nearly all Americans did. And the economy grew on the wide base of millions of people that could purchase refrigerators, ranges, toasters, like who knows what kind of crazy contraptions. But think about like how things might be over the next 30 years for us, right? When everyone is generating their own energy, no utility bills, essentially traveling for free. There is going to be a tremendous amount of disposable income and lots of cheap electricity that might power another economic renaissance similar to the one the TVA powered in the mid-20th century. So really exciting to think about. Next up, we have an email from Craig in Michigan. He says, quote, greetings. I've enjoyed watching a number of your YouTube videos and have learned a great deal listening and watching these informative podcasts. I'm a homeowner in Michigan that's been interested in a Tesla solar roof for 18 months or so. I guess I should say I've been consulting with the local Tesla certified installer for about 18 months, but actually been interested in the product for 3 or 4 years. The local installer just told me last week that they're pulling out of the relationship with Tesla, and now the state doesn't have a service provider. I've contacted what appears to be the 2 closest providers. I think there's one in Illinois and one in Indiana, to see if they'd be interested in helping me, even though I'm a huge distance from their home base. The reason I'm emailing you is to see if you have any insight into when the Tesla products will be once again available. If I recall correctly, Tesla announced about 3 weeks ago that they were halting future installations and gave supply chain issue reasons. So it appears that there's a pause in supply because of the product, because of supply chain problems or just product issues. I'm wondering if you have any idea when installations might be reinstated, end quote. And I happen to have my witness test today, so I have an update. The Tesla tech said that he doesn't know for sure, but he gets the impression that Tesla solar roof installs should resume within 2 months. I pressed him a bit because the shingles are made here in the U.S. at Giga Buffalo, and he did say, well, you got to think about the chips that are in these tiles that come from China, even though they take all the components and assemble them here in the U.S. But I have an active tile. Honestly, I should dissect it, see what's in there, but I don't expect that there's a chip in there. What I really think this is all about is about the solar cells themselves. If I understand correctly, the solar cells don't need a chip. They simply output the electricity they generate, and the inverter is the one that brings the power electronic portions to the system. It's the one that needs the chips, right? But regardless, the interruptions from China, I mean, obviously, they'll have to be resolved before Tesla can get the solar roof back on track. I am interested, though, who is your local installer, and, why is it that they decided to stop working with Tesla? I mean, this is, decidedly against trend, so I'd love to understand, why they decided it wasn't a product they wanted to deal with anymore. So let us know. But thanks to Dwight, thanks to Craig for your input. Let's hear from the rest of you too. Send in your YouTube links. You can comment below, or you can call 203-816-5150, or you can email teslapowerpodcast@gmail.com. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into the news. So this episode, we have about 5 stories to cover. And first up, we've got a story from PV Magazine. They report on price increases for the Tesla Powerwall. Quote, U.S. giant Tesla has put up the price of its Powerwall home battery system as the globe continues to struggle with soaring lithium prices and battery material shortages. As of March 25th, a Tesla Powerwall will now set an Australian customer back an extra $950. I mean, that's $1,000, right? With prices rising from $12,750 to $13,700. The Powerwall system today is significantly more expensive than it was when it launched in 2017, costing just $9,600. Don't forget it's more feature rich as well. But full screen, there isn't a single industry that hasn't been touched by these price increases. I would point out that batteries might be the most constrained product on Earth right now. Not to mention its constituent parts, right? With the EV industry booming, with Australia's home energy industry growing at its insane rates, the United States growing, much of Western Europe, it's absolutely no surprise the prices have to go up. I mean, you might remember that the wait for Powerwalls back when they were first introduced was years, right? It's gotten better over the last 3 years, but these new energy industry booms make it inevitable that raw material costs will spike and the asset prices will have to follow suit. So, all I have to say is get in now before things get crazier. Wait times are going to get longer. Things are only going to get harder over the next 5 years. So keep that in mind. All right, next we've got an article. This is from Solar Quotes. They report on LG battery recalls affecting residential energy storage. Let's read it. Quote, a new recall notice went up on the Australian government's product safety website last Wednesday in relation to LG batteries utilized in some energy storage systems from a couple of other brands. And then it continues. A new notice on product safety says the affected LG batteries were also installed in Solar X Power's X Cabinet, Power Station, and Opal storage products, end quote. And I bring attention to this article to remind us just how much Tesla cares about safety. It's not that Tesla has been without battery fires or safety concerns, but they have been very limited and have largely been overblown. Honestly, they've been a novelty and kind of sensationalized because they're so rare and because Tesla is such a strong brand. Straight up, my heart goes out to LG and to its customers and to these other brands that have tried building a reputation with the intention of making the world better, just to be bitten in the ass by poor engineering and a culture that was more interested in winning business in the short term rather than in safety and long-term customer relationships. It's really a tragedy. And I really hope that they're able to get this all sorted as soon as possible. We want everybody to be, getting batteries in their homes as much as possible at the best price possible. It's got to be safe, though. If it's not safe, then it's just no good. All right, next, Econotimes has an article that extols the virtues of the Powerwall when installed with solar panels. They say, quote, even though it's not quite a necessity, the Tesla Powerwall will certainly improve your quest for a clean, renewable energy. Something. It boosts. Man, the English on this is terrible. This must be written by a bot. Man, that's awful. But it boosts some small features that will surely save you money while covering your energy needs adequately, end quote. Man, that's just terrible. But there are 4 things they point out. The first is grid outages. The second is time-based control. Then they point out EV charging and V2G capabilities, and then independence in energy supply and generation. And the arguments, honestly, this had to have been written by a bot because the arguments get weaker as you go down the list. And the first one, I heartily agree that the battery backup is needed for grid outages. Many people don't realize that you can't use your solar panels unless you have local battery backup when the grid goes down. It's just such a tragedy. People are just like miffed when the electricity goes out on the grid and they can't use the solar panels that are on their roof. So don't be one of those people. Make sure you get batteries with your system. The second one is time-based control, and it's only good if you have peak and off-peak rates. Not everybody does. We don't here, but you still, even though I don't have, a change in rates, I don't have peak and off-peak, I can still store the solar that I generate during the day and then use it overnight. So there's a lot of value there too. But EV charging, I just totally disagree here. I mean, ideally you charge your EV directly with solar so you can minimize efficiency loss. If you have to convert from your DC solar into AC Powerwall back to DC for your car battery, you lose a ton of electricity in each conversion. So this is entirely suboptimal. And then even vehicle to grid is a bunch of crap because the car is already a battery. You should not be using your vehicle to charge your home battery, right? If anything, it would be a replacement for a home battery, but it's still a poor replacement for a home battery because, since you'd lose power to the home, you'd have to, like if you had to run an errand or something, you wouldn't be able to power your home, or if you had to go get your kids, or if you had some kind of emergency. Anyway, it's just not the right way to do it. The right way to do it is have a dedicated home battery. But the last point, independence on energy supply and generation, is just a redo of the points that they had already made. So 2 out of 4, it's not nothing, I guess, but it's not particularly good either. It is really worth pointing out those first 2 points, though, and so I wanted to bring those up, that you must have batteries for your solar to work during a grid down event. And if you have time of day electricity rates, if you have peak and off peak, you could probably get a battery without solar and it could be of significant value. All right, next we've got an article from NPR. They drop a bit of a bombshell. Listen to this, quote, a team of engineers at Stanford University has developed a solar cell that can generate some electricity at night. They go on to say the device incorporates a thermoelectric generator which can pull electricity from the small difference in temperature between the ambient air and the solar cell itself, end quote. And they got me on this one. I mean, I think all of us would be interested in solar panels that could generate electricity at night, but this is the way they're talking about it. It's going to be a tiny, minuscule, almost negligible amount of power. There are tons of examples of using heat differentials to do work. The steam engine, I mean, lots of other things. But, some of them can even produce electricity, but they are very low production techniques, very inefficient. And I got to say, this is a lot more clickbaity than I would have expected from NPR. There's absolutely no way the cost for this tech is going to pay for itself. Night generation solar panels, it will remain a dream for now. Just not great articles this week sometimes. All right, next, Electrek. They report on Tesla's mining ambitions. Let's read it. Quote, Elon Musk announced that Tesla might actually have to get into the mining and refining of lithium due to recent price increases to insane levels. What's strange is that he previously announced 2 years ago that Tesla would get into the lithium mining business. At Tesla's battery event in 2020, the automaker announced that it's getting into the mining business, starting with buying lithium claims on 10,000 acres in Nevada. However, almost 2 years later, Tesla has yet to do anything with this claim or a new lithium mining technology announced at the same event. In the meantime, the price of lithium has gone up by more than 400% during that time. End quote. And, what that means is it's time to get going. What I think is different about this point in time and has changed since Battery Day is that the Defense Production Act has been invoked. This is going to clear the way for Tesla to do what they do well, move fast, and they will probably also break things. So this is, in my opinion, likely to be a bit of a PR nightmare as they go through this process, but they need raw materials like you can't even fathom. So they'll have to do this. With the silver lining is, they won't be bogged down by litigation and environmental delays. Tesla finally, because of that, finally sees a path forward here. And they've just been enduring those price increases because they know that it's just not going to be that beneficial for them to move forward with this project, with so many hurdles in the way. But I don't know. Without the Defense Production Act, I think this would still be an aspiration, not a reality. But now I expect that we'll probably see some pilot output this time next year. Anyway, that'll do it for the news. Let's take another quick break. When we come back, we'll get into the featured video. So this episode's featured videos from Undecided with Matt Ferrell. He looks into residential wind to see what options might be available and what the value proposition is with current technology, and he comes to a disappointing conclusion. Let's listen.
But for the rest of us, it's cheaper and easier to add a few extra panels onto our roofs and call it a day. Low capacity and high costs result in long payback periods for most models that are currently available in the market, which makes solar the more cost-effective and low-maintenance solution for homeowners. Alternatives to increase power capacity and aesthetics, like the Ridge Blade, aren't widely available in all areas yet. After all of this, my final decision is that for right now, wind power is still a very limited choice for home installations, especially compared to solar, which has been proven to be a very effective solution for homes.
So, I wouldn't say the solutions were very practical, nor were they very attractive. I don't know. The wall turbines, it really isn't that bad, but I would say it's definitely not practical. Let's take a look at that one.
If you really want to push the boundaries, the designer Joe Doucet created the wind turbine wall. It's built out of 25 wind turbine generators with blades spinning in the middle. The wall is 8 feet or 2.4 meters tall and 25 feet or about 7.6 meters wide and can produce up to 10 kilowatts. But the design can be customized for each customer. The turbines will operate around 35% capacity, which is the average for US land-based horizontal wind turbines.
And I suppose I could put it at the side yard as sort of like a fence or something, right? But the cost of purchase and the cost of maintenance are nearly as disappointing as the production numbers. Now, let's take a look at that roof ridge thing. That's another interesting.
So what if you don't want to have a giant fan hovering over your house? You might want to look at something like the Ridge Blade wind turbine, which is manufactured by the Ontario-based company, the Power Collective. The technology takes advantage of the Aeolian wind focus effect, where the wind is forced to travel over the roof surface, forming a pinch point at the roof ridge, which speeds up the airflow through the turbine by about 3 times at an optimal roof pitch. Now, according to the company, when installed in places with high flow, the Ridge Blade can produce up to 9 times the energy of a traditional horizontal axis wind turbine. It achieves its full capacity with wind speeds of about 11 meters per second, but has been tested against more than 40 meters per second.
And the roof ridge, I don't know. I think it's a bit gauche. I don't think I would want one on my home, but I don't know. Let me know what you think. I have a link below to the video so you can check out the whole thing, and give us your impressions. I had high hopes for wind or atmospheric or something. I mentioned earlier that I thought maybe a piezoelectric thing might be interesting. In a previous episode. I'm not a material scientist. I'm not an energy scientist, but I just can't help but think that there's something there. I remember my dad had a watch when I was younger, and that watch, it didn't have a battery in it. It was basically powered by movement, and there have been other products like that, but for him to wind it up, he would just shake it around. Like a shake weight, like the thing would go back and forth and wind up the watch. And maybe something like that could be used. I mean, it shouldn't have so much mechanics to it. It should just, turn that kinetics into electricity as directly as possible. Reduce the number of moving parts, which, Matt Ferrell points out are the weakness to most of these wind turbine options. I just can't help but think that there's something there. But, what can I say? Now, I had my second witness test today. I have bad news, man. I'm still a failure. That's right. I failed my second witness test. I mean, this one was a little more esoteric. It wasn't as straightforward as just the nameplate values being wrong. This time, the inverter didn't stay shut down for a full 5 minutes after the manual shutoff lever was re-engaged. When we cut power, though, from the gateway, everything worked just fine. It's just the additional manual shutoff from the inverters that was a bit too quick to start back up. And I mean, that's enough to fail it from the utilities perspective, which is a real tragedy. But Tesla hopes this is just a firmware upgrade. I mean, we'll have to see, but the saga continues nonetheless. Next opportunity will be about a month from today. Of course, I was texting with Kevin today, and he hashtagged email time. So I've followed up with an email, both to UI and to Tesla, to see what the plan is for resolution and what next action should be. So let's hope we can wrap this up pretty quickly. And that'll do it for episode 54 of the Tesla Power Podcast. Please use my referral code. You can save $500 on a solar roof and $300 on solar panels. You can go to ts.la/Aaron62310 to place your order. And I'm Aaron Brady, your Tesla residential energy community organizer. Let's do this again on the next video.